Hey everybody, today I am going to be reviewing The Monkey. This was directed by Osgood Perkins. Perkins had a pretty solid run with his previous film Longlegs, which came out last summer, and I think it found a lot of success primarily due to how effective, brilliantly effective the ad campaign was that accompanied it, to the point where I felt the actual experience of watching the film was kind of a letdown. It was moody, it was meticulous so far as the details and the movie references. Osgood is clearly a horror nut. There's like a foggy, disorienting feeling to the way that the narrative presents itself. It always feels like it's kind of on shifting ground, so you never really know where it's going to go. But unfortunately, the foundation that is beneath that shifting ground to me is not particularly cohesive, and I get lost in the tone and the cynicism without understanding the bolder perspective that's trying to drive it forward. But with this movie, it feels like we're getting a little bit more of a personal peek into that concept from his perspective. And, it's relying a lot more on like abrasive, black on black, blacker than black comedy. This movie is snarky and cynical to almost no end. The monkey in the film is like a wind-up toy monkey, like in the 1980s magical realism sense of things. It represents multiple things in the film. I think it represents existential dread. It represents a sort of external evil, familial ties, repressed shame and guilt, rage, all of these things more in a coming-of-age story. But this monkey seems to have a mean streak, and if you do twist it enough times, it's like, all these random extreme over-the-top deaths start happening all around town. And our main character is this teenage boy. It's like it's his monkey because it was given to him as an inheritance after his father passed away, and he is aware of the power that it holds, and he's trying to destroy it, bury it essentially. And if you know Perkins' history as a person, then I think maybe the opening, particularly the opening narration, is quite funny. I don't remember exactly what he says, but it's something to the effect of like, I've carried these burdens that my father has passed down to me for so long. His father is Anthony Perkins, who played Norman Bates in Psycho, obviously one of the most important American films of all time. And there is something strange and funny to the idea of, Osgood just kind of looking in the mirror and saying quite deadpan, yeah, my dad was Anthony Perkins in one of the most important films, and then he died of AIDS years later. And oh yeah, my mother, she was in one of the planes that hit one of the towers on 9/11. See, it's like when you say it like that, it sounds like it's made up, but it isn't. That actually did happen to him. So it's devastating. So there's a lot of existential angst in this film that I thought would have been interesting to probe. It's like the feeling of, death is so random. It's like it can strike at any time and it can hit anybody, but at the same time, sometimes these deaths, they feel so pointed and so specific, as if, like it was meant to happen exactly this way just to spite you. I was so intrigued by that angle. I thought, wow, this can be really cynical if he's willing to push it, and if he can pull it off, this could be a fun kind of pulpy meta-commentary piece. But unfortunately, I end up having a lot of the same problems with this film that I had with Longlegs, in the sense that it's like, I don't think he understands the intent on a foundational level very well. And so therefore, it's like the shock value and the carnage doesn't have any real weight to it. And it feels aimless, especially as it starts to go towards the third act. And so it's like, it doesn't have a strong moral center to evolve towards. And so therefore, it just feels like it's cynicism for the sake of cynicism. And I just don't feel it. It is padded with all kinds of like, grindhouse Tarantino-esque sort of references, and like it's inspired by like Final Destination, I would say. A lot of nostalgia. It captures that well. The main character in this movie has a twin brother, and he describes the brother as the type who might, make a promise to you and say, let's shake on it. But the moment you go to shake his hand, he'll like fake you out and try to like comb his hair or whatever. And obviously, he's a manipulative little shit. But it's like, that's the vibe that this entire film gave me, just in its personality. It's like it's overcompensating with like the visual acuity and the violence and the humor. Not to say that some of that isn't fun. Some of it I enjoy it. And I like the way this plot, it's similar to Longlegs in the sense that it's kind of meandering and you're like, where is this thing going to go? It almost feels like these little vignettes. And I like some of the visual style when it comes to the horror. There's a moment where where one of the brothers is like looking out the window, kind of like in like The Innocents as an example, and it's just black, and like slowly he starts to see this like shadow of the monkey, and it's like growing and growing as this illusion. And suddenly he turns around and yeah, the monkey is sitting right there. Stuff like that I thought was great. But this film just isn't clever enough, I think, to sustain any of these gimmicks. Sometimes the humor does work. Other times it really doesn't. I think it works maybe it's at its best when it's like blatantly sarcastic, or it's like when you've bludgeoned somebody over the head in a violent sense to such a degree that suddenly there's just kind of a literal quality to things, a directness in the humor with just a hint of the cheekiness as an example. But again, because there's very little backing a lot of the things in this movie, it just, a lot of the shock value feels soft. You know, there are very few moments where I'm like, whoa, yeah, like I'm shocked, and I think that's, you know, that's what they're going for. Perkins is reaching out to a degree for some sort of reflection and intention in this movie, but again, it's like we're just going to fake it out because we got lazy. It's kind of annoying because it thinks it's so edgy, but it's more just provoking for the sake of provoking, more for attention seeking. And some people are into that. If that is your thing, then that's great, but for me, I personally just need more. I didn't think that the characters emotionally were tested enough, especially in the third act when they're trying to rationalize a lot of the existential meaning, but it fails. So by the point you discover any sort of revelations or payoffs, it's like you don't care by that point. It could have explored nihilism and paternal guilt and how that ties into our personal experiences as a family, but it's like, no, again, it fumbled the opportunity. And it's like, this movie has weird instincts. It seems so afraid of uncomfortable silences and exploring, again, that nihilism from like a moral perspective. So instead, it's just going to like throw a flash bomb and hope that it distracts us. When you fail to understand the meaning that you're teasing in your own thesis, and therefore your response is just to create more noise, I personally don't buy into that. I do think this is an interesting film, and I think Perkins is interesting. He's got a voice, a perspective. Like I am excited to see, you know, other films that he does. I can admire the creativity to a degree. I just think, again, he's quite lost. But I think this could be a movie that might be a fun matinee to see. I think it might be a fun stream. I'm not recommending a full price or anything, but again, there's certain things, unique things here and there to admire. And that is my review. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm going to plug my website as always. It is deepfocuslens.com. I'm an artist. I do commission portraits and I sell prints of my work. If that is something that you're interested in, you can always go to the website below. And if you have a question about a commission or a print, you can always email me. My email is in the description box below as well. Also, I'd like to give a shout out to my patrons who are great. Guys, thank you so much for your support. Welcome to all the new members. If you're interested in supporting, the link for that is below, as well as the rest of my social media information. You can watch my videos here, and you can subscribe if you'd like. Catch you next time.